All right, Toralf, God of Fury, 2 generic mana, 2 red mana for a 5/4 legendary creature god. Toralf has Trample, and whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, Toralf deals damage equal to the excess to any target other than that permanent. It's I've had to read this a couple times. Also a mythic rare. I guess I wasn't mentioning rarity. I had to read this a couple times to get it because he has Trample, which is a way to deal excess damage,
Right.
but it specifically mentions excess non-combat damage. So Trample doesn't count. Creatures don't count. You have to deal 3 damage to something with 2 toughness or deal 6 damage to something with 2 toughness in order to deal excess non-combat damage. It has to be from non-combat sources.
Right.
But it basically gives your spells trample to that extent, but they have to hit something else other than the one permanent you're already killing.
Oh my gosh. That's confusing.
Well, I imagine it pairs up with the hammer as well. If you've got this and you've got
a bit
the flip side, right?
Right. So the flip side of Toralf is a legendary artifact enchantment called Toralf's Hammer. That's 1 generic mana, 1 red mana. It has equip for 1 generic mana, 1 red mana. And the equipped creature has, for 1 generic mana, 1 red mana, you can tap the creature, it's equipped to, and unattach Toralf's Hammer to make it deal 3 damage to any target, and then return Toralf's Hammer to its owner's hand. As well, the equipped creature gets +3/+0 as long as it's legendary. So the modifying its power by 3 isn't going to really help you deal non-combat damage. If you're fighting something, if you not attack and get blocked, but if you use something with the keyword fight, that +3 power will attribute to excess non-combat damage.
Fling or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you have to be worthy. You have to be a legendary creature in order to get that +3 power.
Yeah.
The other side, you have to pay 2 mana, tap, unattach it. So altogether, it's 4 mana total to equip it to something and immediately unattach it. Deals 3 damage to any target. The hammer goes back to your hand. So every time you pay 6 mana, 3 generic mana, and 3 red mana, you can tap one of your creatures to deal 3 damage to any target.
Which is non-combat damage.
That's only going to deal.
You also have Toralf.
It is non-combat, but it's only going to be excess if you're hitting something with 1 or 2 toughness or 1 or 2 loyalty counters on it.
But then that excess damage can be put against something else.
It can go to something else. Yeah.
So actually, if you've got a bunch of tokens that are out there of 1 toughness, you're actually can you deal all 3 damage to 1, ping 3 of them then?
Okay, so you want to know if you deal the excess damage to another permanent, and then that's also excess damage. Does that excess damage keep cascading?
It sure sounds like it.
Is that what you want to know?
Whenever you've dealt excess non-combat damage.
Okay, yeah, I believe you're right. I think if you deal 3 excess damage and they have 3 1/1s, you can deal the 3 excess damage to the one, which deals 2 excess damage, which you deal to the next, which deals 1 excess damage. You can deal to the last one. I
which
think you
is more flexible than a normal lightning bolt, which is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, it's a little rarer to occur.
And if you have any extra damage, you can still hit a player, but you can never deal excess damage to a player and trigger his ability because it only triggers when you hit creatures and planeswalkers.
That is so interesting. I like this one as well because you can play the hammer side, unattach it to something, return it to your hand to then play it as the god as well. Just the same as
Pretty
Alden.
Flexible.
So
it still lets you get the hammer in a game and Toralf in a game, even if you just have 1 copy of it. Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, now Toralf is obviously Thor and Thor's hammer Mjolnir and being worthy. You mentioned he's not any more known for his fury than any other god. All the gods are known for being ill-tempered, but the fury is perfectly fine in keeping with Thor, so that's not a problem.
It seems to suggest on the card that you throw it, so you have to unattach it to deal the damage, and it comes back to your hand. Is that a power that Mjolnir had in mythology to be able to return, or is that something that was made up for the Marvel comics?
I think I always thought it was, but Thor was in Marvel comics when I was younger, so I could have been influenced by that.
You could be biased. Could be influenced by it, yeah. It is interesting that he is the god of fury and not the god of thunder. I know it puts a
that's
little
what I
distance
thought, but
between it. But Fury is much more a red aspect than literally Thunder is. I mean, there's lots of Lightning and Thunder red aligned cards, but Fury is a bit more of a baseline red aspect than literally Lightning and
Thunder is usually associated with the anger of the clouds, right? You know, that's you don't usually think of thunder and lightning as being something coming from a place of peace. So I would think that is obvious, but it seems like I don't have, and of course Thor is where we get Thursday from, just in keeping.
He is described as the god of thunder in his biography as well, even though the card just says God of Fury. He's a risk taker. He's passionate for wild feats and saga-worthy adventures. Lots of red aspects to him. Mm-hmm. He has supposedly had a lot of impossible accomplishments, including plucking a hair off the head of Matar, the largest frost giant in Surtland, and he has left a mark on the shell of the Chasm Beast that dwells in the deepest trench of one of the oceans. It also says he has made two realms collide just by swinging his Tyrite hammer, which seems to suggest that he can cause doom scars just with his hammer, which is a pretty powerful ability.
What's a doom scar again?
It's when the realms bump into each other.
Oh, yeah.
It's also mentioned that none of the other gods can wield the lethal power of the storm. And his father thinks he's wasting his talents just by going around and trying to accomplish these crazy feats. Kind of sounds like he'd fit in on the television series Jackass.
Yeah, he was known for bragging and getting caught up in wagers and trying to prove things. And he's known for his strength, but not necessarily for his smarts.
Yeah. Okay. But the fact that he has some father issues that fits in with what you expect on the Marvel side of Thor and Odin. But I don't know how much that comes from mythology.
You know, I'm reading about Mjolnir, and it's obviously a lightning bolt. And you throw lightning bolts, and he's able to throw more. So somehow that hammer must return to him. That becomes obvious when you think about it. Whereas Zeus had to have his lightning bolts crafted by Vulcan, the god Smith, crafts the lightning bolts, passes them over to Zeus, who then throws them with wild abandon. So I'm not sure.
As seen in the Disney feature film Hercules,
and also in what's the musical one?
Fantasia.
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say first, but I'm like, wait, that wasn't Fantasia. That was just Hercules. But apparently, Disney's done it twice.
No, it's certainly what Zeus is known for doing. So throwing those lightning bolts.
Well, I guess now Disney owns Marvel and has done it again with Thor.
Yeah,
interesting.
Well, Disney will own magic one of these days too, and all of us.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Toralf is featured on one card that I found in Kaldheim, Shackles of Treachery. It's not a story spotlight card, so I don't know if this is going to come up in the published story. What am I trying to say? The flavor text and the art kind of suggests that it's a specific moment, but we'll get to it. It's a threat in effect. It's 2 generic mana, a red mana, sorcery, Shackles of Treachery. Gain control of target creature until the end of turn. Untap that creature. Till the end of turn, it gains haste, and whenever this creature deals damage, destroy target equipment attached to it. The flavor text reads, in that instant, Toralf felt only the power of the storm and the need to destroy. So the fact that it's called Shackles of Treachery, it seems to be that someone is affecting him to be even more destructful than he intends to be.
Well, the artwork shows those lightning bolts around his wrist, like those are shackles. He's the one that's being controlled here. And so
I know.
Right, but he's being controlled by another figure, right? That doesn't really seem to be clear who that is, though.
Oh. Well, I thought it looked
that's
enough like him over
definitely
there.
him.
Because this is Toralf in the artwork.
That's his hammer.
Yeah. So it seems to be he's being controlled by these shackles, right?
So it's not his power doing it.
No. But it's not clear who is. And it's also not a story spotlight card, so we may never find out. But I think this is a really, really strong threatened effect in a meta full of equipment,
Good
because it
equipment,
lets you
yeah.
not only take the creature, attack with it, possibly suicide it into something and kill it, but if they have a really powerful equipment on it, it destroys that too. As long as the creature deals damage, it doesn't have to hit a player. And if you have a sacrifice effect, you can always sacrifice the creature as well afterwards. So it's a very powerful effect if you're able to sacrifice the creature after you've stolen it and you steal something with one of your opponent's equipment on it. You don't really want to equip one of your own things to it. But this is
It'll be
not
fun
an
when it
effect I
comes up.
think I've literally seen before.
It's a nice combination. It's unique, yeah. And but it's also common, so I imagine that it's... How useful is this in draft or sealed?
It can be a really big blowout if you steal something good and have a way to sacrifice the creature instead of
And
returning
it's still
it to
only
them.
3 mana. That's
Even if you just steal it, attack with it, and destroy the equipment, but then they get the creature back, like it's still a 1-for-1 trade plus you push some damage
yeah. If
through.
you steal an attack and
it's definitely a way
they
to
chump block
attack
it,
more.
they're not losing a whole lot, except that they'll still lose that equipment.
You can also like treat it as if it's more of an answer to a specific equipment you wanna destroy in the environment, because but it's just strictly better than that because you get to take a creature attack and
But only
destroy the equipment.
only if it's actually equipped. If they've got their equipment out, but it's not attached, well, on your turn,
Right.
it doesn't help.
Right. Also, if the equipment gives protection from red, I mean, you're not stealing the creature anyway. Oops. So it's not a way to deal with Sword of Fire and Ice, for instance.
Oh, sure. A lot of the swords.
Yeah, not really sure how the card directly ties into Toralf. You think a God of Fury might be able to inspire Fury in someone else and somehow gain control of them to be on your side for a turn?
Right,
This
I
is
think that's
storytelling.
why
You're
it's a
suggesting that
different...
it's someone else's ability.
This is just a story where they
Maybe Tybalt. Or, sorry,
shackled
Valky.
Toralf, not necessarily associated with him, but just to show that you could even shackle a god.
But is that associated with a myth you're familiar with at
not
least?
that, no.
Okay.
But
We'll
it's
have
kind
to
of cool.
double check.
Yeah,
that.
we'll have to look out for a god or another figure that shackles people.
Now, the fact that there's a lot of equipment in the set you were talking about, that seems to bear with Norse mythology. There's a lot of items that are mentioned and have their own stories. So I think that...
Yeah, we'll have to talk about the equipment and talk about the runes sometime, because I know that kind of ties in with things you actually see in Scandinavia.